You know, it's pretty wild how a single line drawn on a map can change the course of history. In 1905, the British Empire did just that. They drew a line right through the heart of Bengal. They thought it would secure their rule, but what it actually did was unleash one of the most powerful movements in India's entire freedom struggle. So let's get into it.
Okay, so to really get this, you have to picture Bengal at the turn of the 20th century. It wasn't just another province, it was an absolute behemoth. We're talking about present-day West Bengal, Bangladesh, Bihar, and Orissa all rolled into one. But it was way more than just big. Bengal was the beating heart of a rising Indian nationalism, the intellectual and political center of it all.
Which brings us to the big question, right? Why on earth would the British risk poking the bear, infuriating the very nerve center of their empire? Well, the answer is a classic lesson in colonial politics.
You see, for the British, Bengal's huge size and its fiery nationalist spirit were becoming a serious problem, and in their minds, a problem that needed a pretty drastic solution. First off, there was the sheer scale of it all. 78 million people. I mean, just wrap your head around that number. The official line was that it was an administrative nightmare. How could one guy possibly govern a population that huge? But, well, that was just the cover story. The real reason went a lot deeper.
The real problem for the British wasn't paperwork. It was rebellion. Bengal was the absolute epicenter of this political awakening. It was filled with newspapers, thinkers, and revolutionary groups that were all openly challenging British authority. For them, Bengal wasn't just a province, it was a ticking time bomb.
And the man they sent to defuse this bomb was the Viceroy of India, Lord Curzon. His solution? Oh, it was simple, and it was as old as empires themselves. Divide and rule. And this right here gets to the very heart of the strategy. On paper, the official reason was all about administrative efficiency. Makes sense, right? But the real agenda, the one they talked about behind closed doors, was to smash the growing unity between Hindus and Muslims who were driving the nationalist movement. The goal was to break that solidarity.
And look, this isn't some conspiracy theory. They were saying it pretty openly in their private letters. This quote from Herbert Risley, a top British official to Lord Curzon, says it all. The plan was never about making administration easier. It was about destroying a big force.
And the way they drew the line was surgically precise. They created a new, smaller Bengal province. But get this, it was deliberately set up so that the politically active, Bengali-speaking people would suddenly become a minority in their own homeland. They'd be outnumbered by Hindi and Oriya speakers. It was a brilliant and, frankly, cynical piece of political engineering.
But, and this is a huge but, Curzon and the British government had completely underestimated the people of Bengal. They didn't just roll over and accept this. No, they responded with a movement that would shake the very foundations of the British Raj, the Swadeshi movement.
When the partition became official on October 16, 1905, the reaction was immediate and just overwhelming. All across Bengal, shops shut down, no one cooked, and people walked barefoot through the streets in protest. The entire province observed it as a national day of mourning.
And in this powerful act of defiance, the great poet Rabindranath Tagore made a call to action. He asked people to tie Rakis, these sacred threads of brotherhood, on each other's wrists. Hindus and Muslims tied these threads on one another, a beautiful, powerful symbol that no line on a map could ever break their unity.
Now at the core of this whole new movement was this one powerful idea, Swadeshi. It literally translates to of one's own country, and it became a call to action. We're going to achieve self-reliance by rejecting everything British and embracing everything Indian.
And this big idea broke down into a really clear three-part strategy. First pillar, boycott. Reject British cloth, sugar, salt, even their schools and their courts. Second pillar, Swadeshi. Actively go out and buy and use Indian-made goods. And the third pillar, self-reliance. If you're boycotting their institutions, you gotta build your own.
And this is the incredible part. They actually did it. This wasn't just talk. National schools and colleges popped up to replace the British ones. Swadeshi shops opened up to sell local goods. This era saw the birth of major Indian industries like Bengal Chemicals and probably most famously Jamshedji Tata's iron and steel factory. A nation was literally building itself from the ground up.
But as with any huge historical event, the Swadeshi movement had consequences that nobody could have fully seen coming. It led to a massive political shift in the country.
one of the biggest consequences was how it completely changed the goalposts. The energy and fire of the Swadeshi movement pushed the Indian National Congress to stop asking for small reforms. For the very first time in 1906, they officially demanded Swaraj, complete self-government. The game had just changed forever.
The British, though, they were paying attention. And that incredible display of Hindu-Muslim unity during the movement, it absolutely terrified them. So what do? They doubled down on their divide-and-rule strategy, actively encouraging the creation of separate political groups based on religion, anything to break up that unified nationalist front.
And you can see how quickly this worked. Just 1 year after the partition, a group of Muslim leaders went to the new viceroy, Lord Minto, and asked for separate political representation. Minto was all too happy to listen, and just 2 months later, with a helpful nudge from the British, the All India Muslim League was founded. A new political line was now being drawn to match the one on the map.
So what happened in the end? Did the partition stick? Well, against the relentless pressure of the people's protest, the story took one final, absolutely stunning turn.
After 6 long years of boycotts, protests, and national struggle, the unbelievable happened. The British government caved. In 1911, they annulled the Partition of Bengal. It was a massive victory for the people, proving that a united mass movement could actually force the mightiest empire in the world to back down.
The legacy of the Swadeshi movement is just immense. It proved that mass movements worked, and it created the blueprint for all the freedom struggles that came later, including those led by Mahatma Gandhi. It sparked a deep sense of national pride, fostered economic self-reliance, led to a cultural renaissance, and, crucially, brought thousands of women into politics for the very first time.
So yes, it was a victory. There's no doubt about that. The partition was undone. But that leaves us with one final, haunting question. The physical line was erased from the map in 1911, but the political and communal fault lines that the British had so carefully exposed and deepened, could a line like that, once drawn, ever be truly erased?